As we rest in the wakeful awareness of all things coming and going, we begin to cultivate the qualities of equanimity. And this is occurring as we simply sit. We're not in rejection and attachment. We don't cling to anything. We can feel in our sitting practice its contribution to our suffering. And so we begin to form friendly, unconditionally kind, loving, compassionate relationship with everything, as Jennifer Wellwood said, but more importantly, beginning with ourselves. We recognize the fleeting thought, the harsh mood, the achy body, whatever's happening, as well as the delights. And we open to them all. And we begin to notice that the more we open, the more ease, the more sense of connectedness, the greater peace, calm, gratitude, and cultivating patience and trust, and the capacity to simply let be on the path to letting go. All of this happening simply as we sit here, wakeful. And then we can begin to sense where the sadness or the grief come from. And so, if it's true that love, compassion, the boundless states are unborn and undying, then what are we grieving? And someone might say then, well, I'm grieving the form that it comes in. I hear that often. I'm grieving the physical form that something once was in, or the way that love was expressed, or and then we see what happens, right? As we cling to form, for example, as we cling to it being a certain way. And this is now not because there is no love, it is because it does not show itself in a way that is preferred or familiar or pleasant. And that throws us back once again into that conditioned state of becoming and not becoming, back into the cycle of samsara. And see what happens if you can rest then in the formless reality. It's a wider view. It's warmer, bigger, and has no preference. And this, of course, does not mean that we don't desire the wholesome qualities, that we don't, that wholesome desire is not the same as clinging. We all want, of course, peace. We want the end of violence, the end of hatred, the end of aggression, the end of ignorance and greed. But we also see that there will be no, that it will not come out of pressure. It won't come out of demand. It won't come out of expectations. But that warmth, kind of warmth that permeates everything. And then you rest in that warmth. That boundless love. Beyond form, beyond measure, beyond grief. As Jennifer Wellwood says, the one that holds everything and transforms and then is transformed by it. And then the true sorrow becomes not the thing in its changing at all. It becomes the thing in its change that I could not open to. The thing in its change that I could not love. And then we love that. We care for that, attend to that. And may this practice then be of true benefit. So be it. So we have here in chat from Robin, and it is the love we can give. Yes. Chris, the only thing that is sustainable is love. You told me that once. Yes, it's true. Kathy, Diana, thanks for your wisdom about vulnerability and loss. Yes, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Right. Um, we have to really then look at what we're grieving. I asked the question, what then are you grieving? And what's the answer? It's not having things, Libby said, the way we like, want, expect, feel entitled, right, to be. And I think that's the first layer. I don't even think that's all. I think it's our then deficient response. I think that's where the real grief lives. And then we contract, don't we? And then we get angry. And then we shut down. And then we feel sorry for ourselves. And then, right, we quit. And then all that. And I think that's where the real grief is. I think the real grief is in our some part of us that actually knows we're capable of more. Some part knows, aren't we? We're capable of more. We're actually capable of that love. But nah, not this minute. Nope. I'm just going to be shitty about that floor not being done. Right. And then I have to carry that. No one else. I'm not even certain it matters. I just know I'm capable of more. I know that it's really not about the floor at all, actually. And yet, with a lot of practice, with dropping in, right? What do I have to begin by being able to open with some kind of warmth to my own fear, to my own vulnerability, uh, to my own pain before I'm going to ever be able to put down the sword of aggression. Right? It cannot work. It does not work any other. Does not work any other. And then whether somebody else gets it or understands it, or they don't hear it, or they don't get it, or they just get defensive, really just becomes a part of the play, right? I'm not lost in it because I have already offered the essentials. And if I can begin with myself, the truth is there is some possibility then I could offer it to the other. Maybe write that one then too. So anything else about what it is we really grieve? Any other questions or comments about that before we turn to the chapter?
Di,
Yes.
it's Robin.
Yes.
The selfishness is the thing that I recognized that creates the grieving so much, and the feeling, just that feeling of sorrow for yourself, like that creates so much
Yeah.
of mm,
Yeah.
of the grieving. I don't know. I don't want to say grieving because it doesn't have to be grieving, but just you feel so sorry for yourself, like, oh gosh, I can't talk to my dad anymore,
Yeah.
or my friend is going through this horrible thing. And I recognized that this last week when I was with my friend, I didn't feel any moments of that. I was just purely there.
Right.
And it made such a huge difference for my own anxiety.
Yes.
Just huge. So
Right.
thank you. I feel
Yes.
like I've learned a lot of that from
Yes.
this.
Yes. Because what else is there to do? What else?
Right.
What is it we're thinking? What miracle are we thinking we're going to have to pull off? That we made it better, we got rid of it, somebody feels better. They are feeling better, even if they're not feeling better.
Right.
Feeling better by virtue of what? Being held by someone else, by virtue of presence alone, right? By virtue of presence alone. We can, even when we're not in joy in this other way, we know. Megan writes, I notice grief is the loss of identity in something and the pain with wrestling with attachment to something you cannot control. Isn't it true? Yes. The grief, mostly, the samsara, is mostly me wanting what I want, even when we knew, didn't we? We weren't going to ever be able to keep it. Right? Now, by the way, I don't think that's the same as tears of compassion. I don't think it is. I think we cry for the state of the world, don't we? We do. We cry uh, from the fear that this is not going to get worked out, that we are not going to be able to transform sufficiently to keep this earth or ourselves intact. And there's a letting go there too. But I don't think it's the same self, right? This is that compassionate presence, the one that hears the cries of the world and holds them all. And I think that equals a certain amount of tears for us all, right? It doesn't feel the same, does it? Can you feel the difference? Can you get that sense? It isn't really out of any kind of wanting it my way at all. It's just wanting the world to be okay and wanting the people in the world to be okay. And that wholesome desire is the whole of the Bodhisattva vow. That one. I just want it to be okay. It doesn't mean you're going to get your floor in, right? This is really not the point. It actually means that people who need water can have water. People who need medicine can have medicine. So I don't see those things, by the way, as the same. I think we do cry for this suffering of the world. And I think that's just a part of the path. But it doesn't have much to do with preferences and clinging. We call that wholesome desire. Yeah, grieving who we think we are, who we wanted to be, who we thought we could stay. Yeah, that idea, really simply a concept because we're changing every breath second, right? But some version, solidified, reified, identified version of ourselves. Yes, we grieve significantly for this, don't we? Yeah. So if you're an athlete and all of a sudden you're not, you're gonna grieve that. If you think you've always got to have that hair, well, you're going to grieve that. If you think you always, it doesn't really matter the what. It matters that we can come to recognize, I think, really compassionately, beautifully, the parts of us that are clinging and begin to hold ourselves with some kind of warmth, even in the face of that. But then not blame the world, or not blame life, or not blame the other for that suffering. That we know its cause, says the Buddha. That we understand its cause. And that it was never about anybody else at all. And that's a sobering lesson, isn't it? And by the way, as you've heard me say 100,000 times, and it doesn't mean the other was skillful. Right? We were watching it, aren't we? Aggressions, hostilities, blame, intractable positioning, all the stuff we're seeing in the world. Greg, you're on. Yeah.
I just wanted to, this has been a really, really good one this morning for me. It's really hitting a chord. What I'm noticing is that there's a part of me that doesn't want to open to the grieving at all. And it's but there's a big part of me that does want to open. And then there's sort of like this sort of crack, opening, and then the contraction. And it's very deep. I think there's different levels of that, to the point where there's this ultimate like deep contraction that just doesn't want to open. So there's I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but
I think we all know what you mean, Greg. There is the part of us that doesn't want to let go of the parts we like, or the parts we want to keep, and be that vulnerable then. Right? I mean, that really, once that cracks open, there is no more self.
Yeah, there's something about the wanting.
Yeah.
That is the selfing right there, isn't it?
There's the selfing. And we also recognize there's an essential invitation in this practice and in this path. And you can't force that anyway, can you? There is no just tear it open, demand it, be it. This is the Zen students I've worked with. They're just going to be having nothing to do with confronting the realities of real loss, real change, the real vulnerabilities in the world. And you can't own your way through that. Nobody can. And so that's the wisdom right there, Greg. You go, oh man, I can feel the resistance to the truth of that. That's the grief I think we all have to grieve. See, I don't think we get out of that one.
Yeah.
Nobody does. The letting go of one's holding of oneself in a certain way with a certain set of preferences and right. This really, messy, really messy world, and us as a part of it.
I can say I have this willingness.
Yes.
I can say that.
Yes.
And I can also feel this compassion for the being stuck like that.
But that is the opening.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. It isn't that we're going to be ever unconditionally open, at least not on the path as we're getting to it. And says the Vajrayana, that very recognition and that very holding oneself is it. It is it. It is the opening to the very closedness. That's what Jennifer Wellwood said. Right? That very warmth towards oneself in the middle of this beautiful, treacherous human life. And that we go, I just caught it. I just got the slam and I smiled instead of just hated me or others for it or blamed anyone or, right, went into self-pitying grief. That's where the equanimity ultimately comes from. There is an essential warmth that we're going to look at that Pema talks about. And you're doing it by saying, I truly can feel the wholesome desire for this and currently the resistance as well to that letting go. That's exactly right. I'm with you. I'm going to read what Renee says here. She says, opening to grief means that we think we will feel pain and be alone. Yes, that's the fear. It seems scary, yes, but we also open to love in the most profound way. You're right. And self-compassion to help us along towards equanimity. That's exactly correct. We're all afraid of what the letting go will equal, and it will simply make us bigger. But we're worried about that dissolving self, that not me self, not my way self. And we have to be willing to open to that tenderly, really deeply, tenderly, compassionately, kindly, lovingly. We offer those antidotes again and again and again.
I used to think that grief only applied to death, and that the grief of losing a marriage or any of those things wasn't grief. It was something else. But it helps to recognize it as grief.
That's right.
And deal with it in that way.
That's right. And to allow the sadness. See, I'm not saying that we don't grieve. I'm saying know what we're really grieving.
Yeah.
Really know what the sadness is. It is not the loss of love, and maybe the loss of the capacity to love in ourselves in those moments. Right? Where, just like Greg said, we contract, we get cranky, we shut down, we quit, we enact all the kleshas, whichever those might be. And then again, what's the practice? Can I open to that as well? Can I open right when I go, you're just an idiot, Al, for not talking with me about the floor? That you just scheduled stuff and you, right? And can I feel for myself, really, in my own fear about that? And then the answer is yes, because then I can correct it if correction is needed, or accept it if acceptance is required, or let it go. You know, I don't know. There's all these possibilities. I can't say right for you what will be most right. But this is our big practice. You can feel it, can't you? Yeah, because we all can. I'm going to go once again. I'm going to hit share screen again, see if we can't find Pema's thoughts about um, the essential heart advice that she has. This is the essentials. We've already talked about it, I think, but I'm going to just review this, and we're going to try to see if we can't touch on the 6 realms as well. But here she is. Heart advice. This is the shortest chapter. Heart advice page, little paragraph. She says, it's so big. What are we really going to say? Well, she says everything essential. Never underestimate the power of warmth. What does she mean by warmth? She means opening, love, tenderness, vulnerability, warmth. Right in this very moment, and when we die. And then not only when we die, when anyone dies. A certain warmth, a certain, right? We know this is our autobiography, all of us. She says there are 2 kinds of warmth. Of course, that's not quite accurate. This is relative, but she's going to speak specifically to these 2. One is the warmth of the boundless states, kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. And why? Because this moves us from the state of self-centeredness. The boundless states, those Brahma Viharas, the heavenly abodes, we all have the capacity. Why are they unconditioned? Because they are not self-centered. This is what we all said, didn't we? We said there is grief, there is sorrow. Can I feel the difference, can't you, between the sorrow that opens us, you felt it, and the one that contracts us into being? They are not the same. You get what I'm saying? The one that opens us into warmth versus the one that contracts us into self-centeredness. They are not the same. I'm going to let you sit with that for a minute. There is no warmth in the self-centered grief, is there? It isn't warmth, folks. Is it? Is that how it feels? It's cold. Isn't it? It draws us in, collapses us, shuts us down. It's just me, separate from everything. And we call that grief. That's not grief. That's self-centeredness. And it hurts. And it's suffering. This warmth is that bodhisattva warmth, the one that feels for oneself and all beings in the truth of suffering. It's very different. It's bigger. It's warmer. It's textured. The warmth of that compassion is one element. The second she names then is the warmth of devotion. Love for one's teachers. I would not limit it like this. She is making homage to all of her lineage, which I love. And it's a very, very beautiful thing. And I in no way want to limit or diminish that, because she would not be who she is without that. We would not be who we are without those others as well. And I think the other warmth is for each of our capacity for this love. The devotion, then, you might say, to the path, to the practice, to the teachings, to the lineage, to the teachers, to the friends, to the Sangha, and to one's own wish and willingness. You get what I'm saying? This is really that warmth that she's talking about. The warmth of the potential to be on this path together, to walk it towards something more imbued with unconditioned love. She's naming them as teachers. I would say, of course, and not only. And then the other thing I would say is, and then isn't everyone and everything a teacher? Do you know what I mean? Then isn't everyone, if you are in that openness, then isn't everything and everyone a teacher? And the answer is, of course it is. Of course it is. So let's not limit it to this idea of, well, I've got to be devoted to Trungpa, or I've got to be devoted to Pema, or I've got to be, but everything then as the path, everything then as the teacher. And I know people misread that. I know you did, because of the way she wrote it. Can we be devoted to that? Yes, you can. Because everything then as the possibility for opening, everything as the possibility for awakening, everything as the possibility for cultivating warmth. And then particularly husbands who don't tell you what they're doing with the floor, right? You can say, wait a minute, the teacher has arrived. How do I open with warmth to this? And remember, I said I couldn't begin with the other. I couldn't. I could begin with myself. Wait a minute, my own fear about other safety, my own fear about things not ever getting put back, my fear about things being in chaos and distress. Could I bring warmth to that fear and to that vulnerability? And I could. I could begin there. And then we walk down into paragraph 2. We want to bring down those barriers. That's what Greg was talking about, wasn't he? He said, oh, I can feel them. They're cold, they're hard, they're contracted. We can bring down the barriers and feel an outflow of tenderness and caring. Yes, this is the grief we're all grieving. The one that just moves out for the state of the world and the suffering in it. We aspire to awaken the compassionate heart of bodhicitta and to have it flourish. This is that one that opens us up and does not limit and shut us down. Here we go all the way to like paragraph 5. To the degree that our heart has opened in life, to that degree, it will open at death. I think the statement could even be bigger. What could you say? It is true. What she's saying is relatively true. To the degree that our heart can open in life, we know to that extent it will also open at the time of death. But what else?
And beyond.
And beyond, and before. Every moment that you open is what? Setting conditions for you to open again. Like just now. I am more open today than I was yesterday when I wasn't able to feel for my own vulnerability or my husband's. Bigger today. Isn't it? It's bigger today. And my hope would be what? From that warmth and opening, what can happen? Bigger yet. Bigger still. Other ways that I can then out of that tenderness and warmth, be open. So not just at the time of death, of course, that is also true, but now the next moment, wouldn't it be? The very next one would be bigger, warmer, more tender, more vulnerable. Even when you're pretty sure, as you hear me say often, that you're all fucked up. It's not true. Actually, no, not quite the same. No. Instead of our heart contracting in the bardo, it will expand. Instead of my heart contracting in the face of this grief, the grief that is beyond my self-centered clinging, I will grow bigger, and so will my heart, and so will that warmth. And yes, it's hard and scary. Since a positive state of mind is so important in the next moment, I'm going to say, this open-heartedness towards others will make for a peaceful and positive journey. Yes, and begin with yourself. Begin with yourself. If you cannot feel for your own vulnerability, your own tenderness, your own fear, and your own pain, it will be deficient. It will be. Unlike the warmth of kindness, the warmth of devotion, we'll call it to the teachers, can be surprisingly difficult for many of us to even consider, let alone embrace. For some, the mere word devotion can stimulate a vulnerability and a giving up of too much. I think that comes up with devotion. This is because in modern times, too many teachers have actually harmed their students. She's being very specific here about a specific teacher group because her teachers turned out to cause harm. Her very teachers and the son of her teacher turned out to be someone who propagated harm. And I think there's an apology in here, by the way, around that, I have to say. She's acknowledging something that, by the way, for 40 years she did not do, which was there was harm caused, and that harm was needed to be attended to. And she's addressing it here. Good for her. But I want you to know, I think that's not just, I think that's very specific. I think the one we're talking about, the warmth we're talking about, and by the way, the devotion we're talking about is to the teacher in all things, right? I want you to hold it that way. And that includes then everyone and everything. I'm blocked here for a second. Let's see if I can't get rid of this. Her teacher, her current teacher, a key that unlocks the doorway to the most profound experiences of mind is this level of devotion. Why? We have to let go of ourselves to do it, right? That's why we have to. Devotion by its nature requires that you have to move beyond that self-centered dream. You can't hold it and then be in devotion to the path, to the teachers, to the teachings at all. And here's the other part. I have met enough of these people to know that even thinking of them connects me with open awareness. She is talking about people who are on this path, who are really trying to live with warmth and trying to live with vulnerability and trying to be on the path and practice together. With the awakened nature available to all, yet recognized by relatively few. This awakened nature is something we are all capable of as long as we remember this. Then there would be again this devotion to everyone. Everyone is capable of this, even beyond, personality and what appears to be solid conditions of aggression or hatred. Ultimately, there's only one teacher. Here she goes. Mind's true nature. What? The Buddha in each of us. Right? Deserving of devotion. The Buddha in, or Jesus, or right, any awakened one, wise one. Real devotion, it seems to me, is open-hearted receptivity to things, to life, and to others just as they are. Big assignment, huh? Avalokiteshvara and Kuan Yin are two deities that are often called up as living beings, embodied beings within you, by the way, capable of that level of warmth, that level of love, that level of devotion. And you can call them up by image, you can call them up by name, you can call them up by Grandma Irene. Others that you have known have felt that. You can call that up for me, sometimes as a physical felt sense of warmth, of expanding, of openness, right? This is one of the benefits of psilocybin journeys. You get a direct cellular, energetic, and other experience of this. It isn't a thought any longer. It's an actual experience that you can not only hold, but remember and grow. This devotion is not mindless adoration or idealization of a specific person at all. At all. Thinking of the welfare of others and opening my heart to the blessings of my teachers. Remember what her true definition is now. I put my trust in these two, or we could say then infinite methods. I'm going to stop there. See if there are any questions about this warmth, this devotion. And she is defining it just for our purposes today as being two. As being two. We could maybe simplify this by saying we then are devoted to two things: that capacity in you and that capacity in all beings. Okay? That in you, which is capable, that you devote yourself to this. Good for you, I agree. And that we then are devoted to that capacity in all beings, and devoting ourselves to actions, thoughts, and words that will propagate that goodness. Right? Those two. Me and you. Those two. How about that? Anything anybody wants to say? I don't see anything in chat before we go to the 6 realms. We're going to hit this one quick. And then I'll tell you why. Ready to go on? The 6 realms would be best thought of as qualities of mind. Not things, not solid entities at all. That would be really a deep misunderstanding. And certainly not any kind of fixity of any person. That would be a big mistake. So I have said to myself, oh, that's my hungry ghost. I might have said that, for example, around caramel corn once. That's just my hungry ghost. I can't get enough no matter how much I eat. It's not really fulfilling. That's just a certain quality that is going to be described here. So don't mistake these things as being versions of hell I've heard somebody say, oh, this is like hell and versions of hell. Well, yes, it's versions of suffering, but you don't have to go to hell to get them, folks. You can get them right here in your own heart mind. You don't have to go anywhere. This is the difference. You don't have to die to get here. This is going to happen in your own heart mind as you're confronting our own vulnerability and our resistance to it, and our resistance, our struggling against, our not wanting, or our wanting things to be our way. This is the definition of samsara. It says right here, similarly, in samsara, we go up and down, pleasant and unpleasant, back and forth. We got it, we lose it. We had it for a minute. We were the most in love, and then we couldn't stand them. Right? The flower was beautiful, and then it died. This is the continuous nature, that flow, ebbing and flowing nature of this precious human life. And we don't like it. I love this metaphor. She says it's interesting. We can look at samsara in this metaphor. A living being in samsara is like a bee trapped in a jar, busying, buzz, all around, going nowhere because of the habit's nature, mind. The jar is the habit-natured mind of samsara, right? Wanting the pleasant, wanting to get away from the unpleasant, wanting it to be my way, wanting the person to do what I think they should do, not wanting them to do what they did do, all of these. This is buzzing, going nowhere except in the cycle and circle of samsara. So we know. So these hell realms and these conditions are all versions of that jar, if you could think of them that way, with us buzzing around them. She names them here: the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, the one who cannot get enough, like the addict; the animal realm, the one who leads from impulse, has very little appearance of volition or direct, right? Just blah. You might think of that as kind of a baby. The human realm, that's all of us for sure. The jealous God, the one who has a lot but is still not sufficient. Why do they have more? Why can't I be number one? How come she got the tiara and I didn't? And then the God realm, many of us have rested here. Have enough food, have enough water, have enough clothing, have enough shelter, have love. People love us. We love them. Is it enough? Nope. Not at all. Nope. We're complaining about something. Too much rain, not enough something. Not enough sunny days, too many, right? That is really the jealous God, by the way. Just complaining in the face of abundance. We as a country are there, aren't we? We've got a lot, and no matter how much we get, it's not enough. We want more, right? We've got to be careful because we all have conditions for that mind. Hell is the realm of anger and aggression, hot and cold. She gives examples. It's not just a hot hell, it can be a freezing cold hell. By the way, at the time of death, I do see people moving from and into those hell realms. Too hot, too cold, really unbelievably so, in a lot of distress by virtue of the body's shifting, changing temperature. And at the time of death, this can be very apparent. Just freezing, you can't get warm enough. And really, it does literally crack the skin. It can look that way. Either way, you feel trapped by its intensity in the grip of anger. The only escape seems to be through what? Acting it out, getting it off of you, because it is so hot, so big, or so cold and so contracting that you can't bear it yourself. And rather than tolerate and work with that, what do? Shut it down or fling it over onto the other person. This is the hell realm. We all know it, don't we? We all know it. We're not confused. This one is the next one she goes into is the hungry ghost. The hungry ghost realm is unsatiable, I think the word would be, wouldn't it? Something like that. You can't get enough, and no matter what you take in, the hungry ghost has this skinny little neck and this big fat belly, and it just is never fulfilled. It's never satisfactory. It's never enough. There is no quality of mind. It's just wanting, and nothing is okay. Nothing is ever okay. The hungry ghost. And we all know that one too. I just want more. I just want the way I want it. I want it. And the real suffering is like we're really starving. No matter what we get, no matter what we take in, it's not really the right nourishment. And so we're truly starving. The animal realm is ignorance. She says it can be misleading because one might mistake it for stupidity. It is not that. She says, even here, animals are very intelligent, right? She tells a joke about a squirrel that she had a battle with around a bird feeder. But they don't have wisdom, I guess is the way to say it. They don't have psychological flexibility. They can only learn to a certain fight or flight limit. They can't really, I think is what the animal realm is. It's the lizard brain's necessary capacity, but it is not going to equal sufficient either wisdom, has no capacity for compassion from there. It's self-directed, my survival, my well-being, and how am I? If you can get, I think you can understand that. She writes here, the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms are called the lower realms. We all live there. So I want to be careful about higher, lower. The God realms are really no improvement on suffering. So let's not mistake it there. It is obvious in the descriptions of the hell and hungry ghosts, maybe less so for the animal realms. Cherished pets, for example, she says, appear to have a pleasant, comfortable life. Animals spend much of their time being afraid. And that's something else that needs to be understood, even when they're well cared for. Their animal brains put them frequently in states of fear. I'm going to look at the human realm. I think we get essentially. Let me see what she has to say. Is trapped in wanting, not wanting is really the best way to understand that one. I want this. I like this. I don't want this. I don't want that. I want to get rid of this. I want to get more of it. We're in constant flux and change in the human realm, always seeking what security, comfort, and not often being able to get it. In the jealous God realm, the balance shifts more heavily toward pleasure than pain. The jealous God has achieved success and good conditions. It seems like there should be nothing to complain about, but the jealous God suffers from deep-seated insecurity. There is no thing that makes that workable. I'm the best, but deep down, I feel insufficient. There is no title, there is no money, there is nothing that will truly resolve that insecurity. And then she talks about the, instead of enjoying their good fortune, she writes here, They dwell in competitiveness, rivalry, one-upmanship, paranoia. Paranoia, very, very common. Above the jealous gods are the gods. They experience pure, uninterrupted pleasure. They have luxury, comfort, health, wealth, entertainment. These are the people we're going, why can't I have their life? This is all looking pretty good, except I'm the best and know they're the best. But where is the suffering here? Where is this? Because we all struggle with this. We buy into the God realm here, right? They give to charities, they're philanthropic, they're good people, they're kind. Where is the suffering in this? They believe they're the best. Might be the beginning. They in some way have separated themselves from others because they do not see the truth of their humanity as being equal to everyone else's. They too will age, get ill, and die, right? Which comes as a big shock to people in the God realm. How could this be happening to me? Right? This is not a state of other than material pleasantness. This is not a state of inner ease at all. Don't mistake it. It looks good from the outside. For the first time, it dawns on the gods that their life as a god is also finite. You can't keep it either. No matter how much beauty, health, wealth, money, brains you have, it will all fall away. The pain of realizing that they're headed for a lower realm called death is difficult to bear. I see this happen often. And in fact, it's unrequited grief when it happens. How could this be happening to me? I have the best doctors. How could this be happening to me? I have the best wife, the best kids, the best boat, the best, right? Because again, there is no separation from the reality of this human condition. The rawness of life doesn't seem real to you, so other people experiencing that rawness is outside your frame of reference, not to be considered. Every kind of mentality associated with the realms is a temporary state. We are not trapped there, and that warmth that we talked about can always be invited in. Those emotions and mental habits are not as solid or unchanging as they appear to be. We can often mistake them as the person or the personality. It is not true. For instance, if you're in a hellish frame of mind and think everyone and everything is against you, your unconscious default behavior may in fact be blame, self-blame or other blame. That blame, I'm going to say it again, is deserving of recognition and warmth. Can I understand that this is simply my fear, that I or others cannot be enough? Any of the ways we've discussed about working with the kleshas, refraining, transforming, and using them as the path, which is what we're doing now, can serve to get us out of the psychological state we are trapped in. Why? The science says once you recognize the state, you are no longer hooked by it. You now have infinite, by the way, infinite options for attending, care, love, and compassion, whatever might be available. When we become more capable of moving out of our realm, and again, I don't think you just force that. I think it begins with recognition. We begin to make available those other qualities. When we realize this fully, the lid comes off the jar and the bees are liberated. when we recognize this fully and then act in accord. There we are. Thank you for sticking with me. I wanted to get through that chapter. I know we're running late. I want you to see if you can invite warmth. What is that going to look like for you? I don't know. What would that be? An open-heartedness, willingness, Greg said, an allowing, certainly an acknowledging, and then an abiding. Can I stay with myself, offering something, beginning with myself regarding my own stuckness, my own contractedness, my own pain. I'll write something about that because I know it will be hard to hold. But I want us to be working on offering that warmth in particular this week. I know we're late. Thank you all for hanging with me for this. I wanted to get that recording in. May we all be well. May we all be happy, truly happy. May we all have ease of being. May we all be safe and have peace. May there be peace. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. We'll send out the recording. I'm going to be working with Leslie on that today. And I look forward to seeing you all on Saturday, where we're going to be talking about equanimity. Equanimity as the first and most essential of the boundless states. Without equanimity, there can be no abiding love, compassion, or joy. All right, everyone, be well. Good to see you all.